All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. I see a lot of your views coming through. I'll post some of them to my guest in studio. Nerima Wako is here, Executive Director, Siasa Place. Kevin Osido is also here. He's the Executive Director, County Governance Watch, but also a political commentator. And Beverly Aketch, Organizing Secretary, Daughters of Raila. We'll talk about that in just a bit as well. But Kevin, I was talking to you in terms of what is important for the young person today in this election. Yeah. What do they think are the issues that need to come to the fore? And are they seeing them in any of the tickets, or is it about the personalities?
To be honest with you, Trevor, the August 2022 elections, August 9, 2024 Kenya, has given the young people quite a very, I would say, problematic choices. Because if you look at the issues in terms of just by the roadsides, if you ask a young person, why would you vote, they'll tell you it's because of the individuals. Yeah, but whereas there are issues that young people are going through, and there are issues that really need to push them. And one of those issues is a question of youth employment. Kenya has failed to provide opportunities for young people to feel appreciated by their government. And this is both at national and county levels. Every year, this country churns out more than 1.4 million young people into the job market. If you look at the interest and where these opportunities are, most of them are white-collar. Blue-collar elements, even government never talks about them. Climate change concerns, do we even have policies that would therefore want to spur and motivate young people to get into some of those opportunities? If you look at our informal sector, which is a Juakali largely, where boda and all these other people really get therefore pushed towards getting into, the statistics indicate that only 56,000 out of the 1.4 million, can get those opportunities. So that leaves you with over 82% of the 1.4 jobless youth. So politics comes in, and those are the people who therefore get mobilized, are given 100 shillings, 50 shillings to either create or cause chaos here and there. And then ultimately you ask the question, so when this person gets into office, what is it for us as young people, or for those young people? So one of the things that we are doing is to be able to help young people create memoranda documents and positions for various leadership and governance stages. So that is the presidential level, at the gubernatorial level, and even at the MCA level. Because a lot of service delivery concerns, budget-making processes happen at the county levels, where then you really need to sit and influence for what you feel is important for you as a young person to be put in. But Trevor, that is just one side of it. The other side of it is, of course, the decision-making platforms. Yeah. When political parties are submitting names of nominees, how many of those who are being nominated are young people? And here is Article 260J of the Constitution. A young person in Kenya is anyone who has attained a minimum age of 18 and a maximum age of 35 years, so 18 to 35. And this really is a block of those who are the voters. Recently, IEBC gave us a space to register, and of course, they did enhanced voter registration. If you look at the statistics, we are talking about 85% of new voters out of those who registered are young people, largely under the age of 24. What does that mean for the Kenyan economy? What does it mean for Kenyan governance and leadership spaces? So for me, the youth really have an opportunity, but unfortunately, we have also failed to organize effectively to make that change. If young people of Kenya wanted to have an under 35 president, they would have that president. Across all the 47, okay, let's say 24 counties, if youth wanted to vote for their youth governors, they would have that youth governor. But I think the kind of trajectory that we have in this country, where politics is seen to only belong to a certain clique. So there are names that you will hear for the past 40 years, that these are the people who must be. So it's also an opportunity for young people to consider the youth bulge and take it as an opportunity to organize and consider August 9th a very critical trajectory for youth in terms of where we want this country to go. Because the median age is very clear, 29 years. And what does that therefore mean even for the policies that we make? President Uhuru Kenyatta has tried. We have about 7 CSS who are young people out of the 11. We have youth and these affirmative action funds. Youth Enterprise Fund, Uwezo Fund, AGPO, access to government procurement opportunities, among several others. But look at the gaps and the missteps. You know, the requirements for you to get some of these funds, they are way so high for most of the young people in this country.
Yeah.
How much are we safeguarding the interests of the youth and using the current political climate and context, therefore, to set what really excites young people to be able to either be interested, concerned, and therefore take active parts and roles.
And Beverly, there are many people who are saying that the youth do not exist as a voting bloc. Okay, that's the reason why what Kevin Osido is saying sometimes can be elusive, that even though they're the majority, they can't decide and pick someone on their own because they don't exist as a voting bloc. Same thing applies to the women. In fact, if you look at the percentages on Daily Nation front page, 32% of women who back the Ruto Gachagua card, according to TIFA poll, 35%, that's a percentage of women who support the Odinga Karua card, according to the same poll. It's a negligible difference.
Yeah, 3%.
So what really inspires these people to vote then? That's the main question, even the young people.
Now, for a long time, and this notion has been across, especially the young people, that you only vote people who have big pockets or deep pockets, who are moneyed. And one thing maybe we didn't know is that we got the power, because youths actually form quite a large percentage of the population of this country. If only we can work on that and know where our strength lies, then majority of people who are elected could actually be as youths who represent our needs. Because right now, as you did ask, what is it that young people really need to see? Job opportunities. So many youths are unemployed, and this is why you find that most politicians are actually using them to create chaos, which is a sorry state, so to say, you know. And if we can only, as youths, embrace a fellow youth, even though they don't have the deep pockets, but we look at the bigger picture, who really represents our needs, who really is for us and not after us, then we can see a majority of people. And this also applies to women. It is time now for women actually to know that who is there who is fighting for them, who is fighting for their needs. Because for a long time, like maternal health care, this is something that is very crucial to women, because we are the people that suffer the most when it comes to maternal health care. So we also need to look at the manifesto of our candidates, of our presidential aspirants, who actually touches on that, who touches on job opportunity. When it comes to youth fund, we need an enabled environment whereby we can easily access these funds, even the women fund. We need an enabled environment that we can access this. And youths, we are so talented. By the end of the day, we also need an environment where our skills can be tapped and put to good use. Because it is not all of us can go to the university or higher education, but there are majority who are down there. What is in for them? Does it mean that if you did not go up there to the higher education, you are not able to amount to anything? And also those who went to the universities, how many people are jobless? Quite a number. And also, we are also looking amongst these candidate aspirants, who is looking into the loans, the help. This actually now plays a critical, because we have quite a number of young people who are coming from poor or humble background. And you've seen, even you've run some news on those children who've not been able to go to school due to lack of fees. This is happening because people are jobless. Right now, we are in a tight economy. Surviving, it's like you just live to survive by the end of the day. So we need an enabled environment where each and every person can thrive. The young people can thrive. The women can thrive. Even those who have nothing can actually thrive, not only those who have deep pockets. If we continue to look at those who have deep pockets, that's why you'll find that we have some names that are repeatedly, for the past 40 years, they are still there. And some of them, you find that they call themselves youths. You know, and then you wonder, are they youths? If they're youths, then who am I?
Yeah.
You know, you start to question even your age. Are you an infant? And then at what point will I ever grow now to be a youth like them?
Yeah.
So we need people who can fill in that shoe, and we need to fill them by the end of the day.
Okay.
So that they can make us go out and vote.
Okay.
Because if we continue to be jobless, seriously,
Yeah.
they'll take those 100 bob and start creating chaos.
Yeah.
The jails, the remands are full of young people. Okay. If you look at it, if you take a keen research on why they're there, it is because they didn't have something to do.
Okay.
They were idle, and that's why they resorted now to such criminal acts.
Yeah. Nerima, I keep pushing this agenda of the young people in terms of what really inspires them, because they agree on a few things. One, we all agree we have similar problems. Sometimes even agree on the solutions. But when it comes to electing the leaders, other things come into play. Ethnicity, where they come from, which gender they go, which gender they belong to. How can you then inspire the young people to understand that it's about the agenda and not the person? Because or is it that people have already decided that they know the manifestos are papers, they'll be shelved, and people move on with life? So it's all about the quick gains. What can I get now?
So it's very interesting because the youth get a lot of their information from family members. It's not something that, as a young person, I can go and I say, on my own, this is the individual that I want to vote in and select. Because there's also that pressure within the family, which we're not talking about, which is often carried by the father or the patriarch or the uncle or the grandfather. And he says, in this house, this is the direction we are going. and that's the culture that plays a huge role when it comes to our elections. Because we have seen it in some communities where there's the negotiated democracy, the council of elders. Why do politicians run to councils of elders to endorse them? Because it matters. Old people's perception of your leadership matters. So we cannot negate that. So when we're here saying the youth should choose their own leadership, you're telling them to do it in a space where we depend on old men's opinions. It's difficult, but it's not that it's not happening. I have seen a shift where there are people who are young and they are candidates, and youth are coming out and supporting and volunteering. It's a shift. But there's also a difficulty for young people to make it to the ballot. Like has been mentioned by Beverly, there are very wealthy individuals who, I've seen it with my own eyes, where they'll say, you know, support me, I'm the one with the money. Why would you support someone who has absolutely nothing to buy? I'm the one who can show you results. I'm the one who has the deep pockets. So we have to fight against that speak as young people. Because if our politics only becomes about money, then we will not have the best representatives in parliament to represent us. It is obviously personal interest that's driving these individuals to get there. And leadership has absolutely nothing to do with wealth. You can be a brilliant leader, but have no coin in your pocket. And youth will have to start thinking in that regard when it comes to elective politics and elections. But I think it's changing. I think we're in a season where we are going to be seeing some of these politicians for the last time.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that move?
Yes.
Yes. But the young
mean,
people, are they inspired
it's
enough?
just a matter of time. And then there is a reason that God made us.
And Trevor, you know, whatever she's saying is very true. There are some leaders who are not going to be elected back to parliament. We are going also to see a crop of new leaders, new blood, fresh blood. We just hope that they're also going to ensure that they represent the people that voted them there, the young people. So this is going to be, it's an exciting, it is a transition. And we can't wait to see
and
how
if you look at
Is it, Kevin?
Yeah, it's possible. It's happening. If you look at the party primaries, look at the number of big names that were fell down, you know. And if you look at the people that were there chest thumping and saying, this has been our zone, we must do it, you must elect me, it is happening, Trevor. And for areas where probably the hegemonic nature and patronic nature of our politics is still being stalled, you see, for example, where I come from in Siaya County, the governor running mates are more or less tending towards picking younger people And the same is actually applying across the country, where if you feel like you've been there for what we are saying 40 years plus, it's not that it's not bad to be 40 plus or be there for 40 plus years, but the realities on the ground, vitu kwa ground, are that what happened then and what is happening now require different energy, skill set, and basically avenues for achievement. And so it really therefore means that the spaces for women and young people and persons with disabilities are being enhanced and strengthened. And that is why we see, even for women, governors tending to want to, if you are a male governor, you want to tend to pick a female governor. And if you are a female governor, you want to tend to pick a male governor. Because the gender issues and the gender equity concerns really are turning out to be very critical in terms of how people perceive you to be able to do what Beverly calls run a family. Because a very successful family will have a father and a mother. And so it therefore means, Trevor, that this election is also opening up doors that were not seen as very critical, but those glass ceilings are now getting broken, and people are beginning to see things which we never used to see in the past. Yeah. In fact, Kitambo, or them days, you'd be like, well, I know so-and-so will vie atachaguliwa, so why should I want to go and vote? But that is now being countered by the mixes that we see of male, female, youth, and that also gives young people an opportunity. Yeah. And I want to appeal to the youth of Kenya to hold that to their chests. That once we do the elections, people are sworn into office, let's also look at how CECs are going to be appointed. Yeah. The county executive committee members, we want to follow through and check how many young people are in those 11 positions at the county levels. We want to check in the county assemblies and Senate and Parliament and National Assemblies or Parliament, how many young people are going to be nominated by political parties, so that political parties also stop seeing young people as just instruments of use. Mobilize for us, provide men in black, security, and all that, And they are the best bloggers for politicians. Why should they be used to be blogging and passing news when at the point of doing the actual work, hawaonekani?
But even the young people who were elected in the last election, have they performed any better, Kevin?
In my view, I would say yes. By and large, of course, with I would say yes and no. And one of the examples I'll give you is Mheshimiwa Babu Owino. Of course, not to say youth or whatever, but the degree at which you mobilize young people to get endeared towards your manifesto or your projects. If you go to Babu's constituency, for example, of course, Nerima might not agree.
Nerima disagrees, but I'll give you a chance.
No.
I'll give you let him finish.
I'm just starting. Nerima, I am just starting. Yeah. If you look at the infrastructural development in that particular constituency compared to maybe 4, 5, 7 years ago, there is quite a huge improvement. And that is basically at the legislative level. You go to counties, and how many young people are speakers who have done very well in terms of giving spaces for members to debate, transformative, action-oriented, value-driven processes at the county levels. The people who, and we've done this analysis, who actually move motions at the county assemblies that transform the decisions of governors and even how budgets are being, appropriated at the county levels are under 35s. We have seen most of course, nominated members, both MCAs and even at the National Assembly, have serious concerns in terms of what they can be able to do. But if you look at their contributions in some of the committees and what they have been able to present as positions based on either their experiences or expertise from either training or interests in agriculture, in water, in education, most of those people who are making those transformational decisions are actually young people, and is based on what they feel and the kind of conversations that they are having. Yeah. Of course, Nerima has issues with me, with my naming Babu. Yeah. Okay. So
I don't have to get into we will get to it and give your views. Beverly, have they performed any better, in your opinion? Because you keep pushing this youth agenda, but the ones who've been given the opportunity, have they performed to expectations?
I can say they've not performed to my expectations. And this is also a warning, or I'm calling on those who are vying currently, who would like to be elected back into office, that to take this seriously, because I think there's a tendency once they get there, it is either people think that they want to enrich themselves and not work for the people that voted them in. So we would like to see a young person being voted into office and actually taking this job seriously by ensuring that the people that voted them there are feeling the impact of why they were voted in. We are not just saying we are voting you because you are a young person. But at the end of the day, what do you want to offer to us? Why do you want us to vote you in as a young person? And this is where now we find these old guys now beating us, you know, because they have a clear agenda. And as young people, maybe we are just coming in like, we are young, you are my fellow youth, I'd like you to vote me in. Another thing, Trevor, we are well informed right now as young people. We know what we expect of our leaders. And I'd also like a situation whereby we recall back our leaders who are not working. This hasn't been done.
It's difficult.
You know?
It's very difficult. It's a long process.
It's a long process, but you know, by the virtue that we did put you into that office, we also have the power to remove you from that office if you're not working. We just need to get done with this psychophancy thing.
Okay.
Then we know that real work will be done.
Okay.
You get it.
All right.
Yes.
Nerima, what are you? I saw you shaking your head when Kevin was speaking earlier on. But are you differentiating between character and performance? Because those are two different things. Right?
Good questions. Hey. Anyway, no, it's true. Okay, so character is flawed. But also I feel like there can be an example. There can be an example like David Ochieng. You know, he entered below the age of 35. He's formed his own party. He joined Azimio, you know, an affiliation party. And this is someone who is not even 40, you know. And the fact that he has been able to do that, those are the people we should be highlighting. And also mentioned by Mzalendo Trust as being one of the most active members of parliament. So I would say that is a good example. And I feel that there are a lot of young people who are doing tremendous work, and they're also very mature in their politics. It's not dirty, it's not noisy, it's not insulting. And I'm looking at you, Sido. And I think... And I think it's important to highlight those individuals because we even saw him come out and speak out and say, you know, even the way they were doing the interviews. And he was like, you know, you guys just do that, you know, and you tell us who you selected, because he's trying to show and tell, you know, his party that you guys are now beginning to look a little, you know, confused and a little silly on TV. So why don't you just, you know, do that in the house and then you let us know. So I think that they are very mature politicians who are young, but they are not highlighted as much. So I would say that. But I'm also hopeful because when you're talking about entering politics as a member of a party, there's party interests as well. And it's very hard to influence that change as a candidate, an individual, and your party is going in this particular direction. I don't think our politics is at that level as of yet because it is seen as fighting the party. And a lot of times when an individual does that, we've seen what happens. They either get kicked out of particular committees or they are completely ostracized from their party. But there are youth who have not made it through their party primaries and have ended independent. And that is something to watch out for. There are youth who are saying parties are not working for us, so I'm going to enter as an individual. So what will that mean in the future of our politics? And that's something to watch out for.
But Kevin, is this all about the people or is it about selfish interests? Because when you look at both sides, in as much as we're talking about the Raila Karua ticket and the Ruto Rigathi ticket, there were some serious fallouts even in that selection itself. In fact, up until now, Kalonzo Musyoka, who was supposed to be the running mate, says is yet to decide. But at the same time, there's another issue that still comes in. On both sides, they're already giving out positions to people who are deemed to be loyalists. So where does that leave the space for the people then? Because at the end of the day, is it just about their own selfish interests?
Trevor, our politics in this country is never about the people. It is about personalities. Of course, those personalities are also people, but I'm using people, borrowing from your word, to mean the wider citizen. Exactly. It is never about the ordinary citizens. It's never about the people. It is based on interests and how those interests play in those closed doors that are actually closed for the people. Sadly, is that the kind of decisions that are made in those closed doors really affect how the people behave and inform how those personalities behave with the people. So if you look at, and even within Kenya Kwanza, there were major fallouts, Kithure Kindiki and of course Rigathi Gachagua, and then you go to Azimio with Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka, with whom I would want to appeal to stop his confusion. Mheshimiwa Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka needs to know that there are young people who are really interested in looking at him, motivate, mentor, and grow us to certain levels. His watermelonic nature, because he declared his interest in presidency, named a candidate, and then said, I am taking 10 days leave. Then he went and started taking care of cattle in his village. Surely. Is that the spirit of hard work? Is it a go-getter spirit? What is the former vice president showing us? And so I really feel disturbed about his behavior. My encouragement is that he'll really consider the wider vision of this country, and that is why I still believe that our politics is purely based on personalities. It's not about the people and what the people want. It's about a few people and what they want, and then they use the people, and that is really what the cards are on the tables. Yeah. How many people can you bring? You know, if we make you a running mate, how many votes can we comb from your area, you know? Yeah. And then ultimately it's about positions. Who becomes what when we form government? Which I think is ill-advised, Trevor, but it's really to whip the people. Yeah. Because when you say, for example, Mombasa governor will be cabinet secretary in charge of lands, of course land is a serious issue. In fact, it's a top issue among many issues that the coastal people go through because of their past historical injustices around land and title deeds and all that. But who says that it has to be Mheshimiwa Ali Hassan Joho? How about the other people, you know, in the Rift, in Mau, you know? When you say so-and-so will be cabinet secretary in charge of justice, what happens to others who probably would want to feel much more closer to the experiences that Kenya has gone through, the gaps in constitutional implementation, and so they feel that I have something to offer. Yeah. So the early naming of positions still goes back to the issue, Trevor, is about personalities. Yeah. And they're using those personalities, they're awarding them so that they can be able to whip the people who come from where those personalities come from. It's a sad day for our politics, but that's what it is.
But if this is the fact at the top, how then do you blame the younger people who also just want to get the quick harvest? Because for them, they know the positions are not coming. All I can get now is the 100 shillings or the 50 shillings, so let me get that and leave.
Which is the gap in organizing. Because even where these people are, a wider majority of these people are young people. It's actually youth and women who vote in this country. But the kind of discouragement, disenfranchisement, and the lack of direction that we see at those decision-making levels also trickles down to the youth. And so they look at how the organizing is being done at that top level, and they also say, kama hawawezi, sembuse sisi, how about us? Which therefore means, in my view, that young people need to move further a bit from looking at the way politics is done from a personality perspective and begin to also identify their own personalities. And it is possible. So that we say in the next 5 years, we can front a presidential candidate who is under 35. We have 47 independent candidates running for president. Of course, some of them, about 4 or 6, are under 35. But what are the chances, Trevor, that you will even get 10 votes? You know, as a young person running for president, how have you organized to be able to whip the youth networks across the country, across the counties? Have you engaged with youth-serving organizations to help profile you, to help, you know, send your images and your manifestos to the WhatsApp groups, to the kind of hundreds of thousands of databases that we have? So the element of organizing, in my view, is the biggest gap that exists around youth personalities and politics in this country. And I am hoping that we are picking lessons in terms of how we can inform the youth constituency in how they can also influence even the decisions. As I finish on this, is to look at the political parties and the youth leagues or the youth wings. Who are the leaders of these youth leagues and these youth wings, and what degree of decisions do they have? Can they even influence for young people to be given nomination certificates? Trevor, they cannot. Instead, they'll be whining, agonizing, crying, and lamenting on Twitter, on Facebook, saying, oh, mtu wetu amenyang'anywa. But you are not there when they were making decisions on who gets that nomination ticket. Whereas ultimately it is the youth who actually go even and vote at these party primaries.
Okay.
So a lot of gaps, which I hope that as we move on and we say Kenya is a growing democracy, we can be able to learn. And Nerima raised the issue of independence against political parties.
Yeah.
Civic education is very critical because even as an independent candidate, what degree of decision making can you influence at the county assembly and even at the national assembly level is very minimal.
All right.
Because the parties have a way in which they do their politics.
Yeah.
You might not even be given a chance to vote on very critical aspects.
Issues. One of them is here, Beverly Aketch. She's the organizing secretary, Daughters of Raila. We'll find out from her how much influence she has there. That she makes the decisions in the process. But Beverly, first of all, let's talk about these fallouts that you saw there. On the Ruto Gachagua ticket, there was Kindiki Kithure, who even later on came out and said, you know what, I am taking a break from politics. I don't even want any elected position. Now on Raila and Karua, there's Kalonzo Musyoka who says, now I'm doing this on my own. And now is being told we'll give you chief minister and all that. Does this fallout at the top then cascade into the decisions that the young people make, or does it open it up for every man for himself? So I'll just get my 200 shillings, go home. Whatever they do at the top, nobody cares.
First, to start with Trevor, during the party primaries we witnessed a very sorry state, you know, with political parties. And these I'll also speak to the political parties because we continue saying that we need youths at the helm. It is not that youths did not go to vie. They did. You know, they went out of their way to campaign. And then by the end of the day, as Kevin puts it, is they reward loyalists. And actually you find that some of the youths, majority of them, are loyalists to these parties. But then you get to wonder at what point will we ever be given an opportunity when you are being told you won square, you know, but you're being told now step down to let this other person win, you know.
Still young.
You know, and you are living, you are stepping down for someone who is maybe over 40s, and you are in your 20s or in your early 30s. So you are wondering at what point will you ever rise to power and to get to the decision-making table where you are in a position to make decision. So our leaders sometimes they fail us. Yeah, they fail us as young people because maybe we do not have deep pockets to convince them to give us these positions, but we go out of our way to work. And just the same way you see the Kithure Kindiki and Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, it trickles down by the end of the day. Because as a young person, now I'll sit here and I'm like, yes, I vied. And this thing was snatched away from me, while my people overwhelmingly voted me in during the party primaries. But my party is telling me that now you have to step down. You know, you'll take a back seat as a person because one, you're going to be discouraged because you're wondering at what point who will fight for you, who will hear your voice, you know? So our leaders actually need to listen to us. And also, just the same favor they give to the other people, they also need to give us these favors because we are equally up to the task. So in party primaries, they did let us down. Yes.
Nerima, are you seeing a set of double standards here where the youth are expected to hold a certain threshold of integrity, but the people at the top seem to have free will? They can do whatever they want, including name cabinets before they're even elected into office, which also portends a very potentially embarrassing situation. So if, for example, let's talk about Raila and Karua. He, as elected, has a legal, constitutional cabinet secretary in that slot. He's supposed to name them, and then the parliament is supposed to approve. So what happens if parliament says no? And this is your deputy president. Then parliament has now rejected your deputy president for a cabinet position which you had already priorly named her. Isn't that a potentially embarrassing situation? But then let's come back to the main question. Is it double standards? For the people at the top, they seem to get away with a lot, but the young people are pushed to the wall when they somehow also just want to get the little that they can get.
Yes, it is a double standard, and it happens when it's people who are in power, and that's the influence of power. But we also see it sometimes in our courts, where there are certain individuals who don't have cases that are convicted or run for a long period of time, or evidence suddenly disappears, and a young person who might not even have access to a lawyer doesn't receive the same form of justice. And unfortunately, it's an issue that we have in our country. But I do believe the more we continue to live and breathe our constitution, the more this will actually be fought. Something like this is something a civil society organization such as myself can take the issue to court because of no due process, and I will be heard. So as much as it's happening, I also think we are growing as a country, because it's not happening in a days where, you know, Moi used to be able to appoint people the way he wanted to. Yeah.
And fire you there also.
There, you know. So, you know, but we've moved to where now people can go and say, no, that process was not right, and I'm going to take this to court, and you can actually win. So it won't be something that... I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it's something that can change, and people are watching. And also, I say this again, independent candidates are forming a caucus, if you didn't know. That means something in our politics.
Do they stand a chance, though?
I think they will. I think they do. I think.
Because even right now, as we speak, there are 38 of them. Most people are saying they've never even heard of any. 55 is the total number of presidential candidates.
Yeah.
Do they stand?
Okay, I'm not looking at the president. On the other levels, there are like over 1,000 of them. But I feel like that's actually going to tilt the way our politics is done in the future. And I say this because when Dr. Alfred Mutua moved, you know, with his party, well, tried to move. Anyway, whatever is happening there, I did receive calls from youth who are members, you know, of Chap Chap, who are vying, and they're like, when am I gonna do, you know, Nerima, like, you know, my dad is pro-Baba. Now all of a sudden, I'm on this other side. And he has told me to step down, or I'm not going to support your campaign. If you're going against Baba, I'm not supporting your campaign. So it shows you what I was saying, how, you know, the influences of family that surround young people. And sometimes even these decisions to shift is not just about the numbers, it's the ripple effect that it's causing in people who are actually going to strengthen your party, because they're the ones who are going to be vied in. And so they're also being impacted by those particular decisions. And it's the young people who bear the brunt of it.
Okay. Beverly, you mentioned the issue of nominations, and I see Frank Orinde here is also talking about it, and I'm about to get to the feedback in just a bit. But Frank Orinde here on Twitter is saying our political parties are corrupt. When it comes to leadership and the youth factor, they prefer to give tickets to those who have the muscles in terms of how much they can spend to buy that ticket.
Yes.
Is this a fact?
Yes, that is true. I can say allegedly true.
I see how careful you are with that.
Allegedly true, because we've seen these things happening. Because you see, a typical example, you see a young person who doesn't have that muscle, financial muscle, running against someone who has deep pockets. And by the end of the day, the person who has deep pockets is being given the nomination certificate. This one, even if you are to convince me otherwise, I'll definitely say it is because you had a deep pocket and me, I was disadvantaged financially. So, unless otherwise, but you can't convince me otherwise.
Yeah. But Kevin, can we really detach this, money and politics? Because even, can it ever really be detached, or is it a reality we have to live with now?
It is a reality that we have to live with. Money plays a very critical aspect in politics. And Trevor, Nerima and Beverly, that is why Parliament has failed to pass the Campaign Financing Act, despite a number of court pronouncements, lots of advocacy work by civil society organizations like some of ours here. And it's because of the place and space of money in politics. And this goes over and over, including even the amounts of money that you pay to a political party to just clear you to run. Why? It's the party who should be paying me, you know? to be using your name to profile you, not me paying you. But of course, it's politics, because you also expect that there are admin issues, there are logistical issues. For example, there are areas in this country where when certain people show up, like say Mheshimiwa William Ruto goes to Rift Valley and says, Trevor Mbija Tosha, you are as good as already elected. Baba goes and says, Nerima Wako Tosha, you are as good as elected. So we give it to them in terms of how our political parties have been structured. But moving forward, especially when we are able to pick the lessons, we are going to deal with some of these gaps. And how to do that is, of course, to look at, for example, the Campaign Financing Act and the monies that political parties get from the exchequer. And right now is, I think, only 3 parties, Jubilee, ODM, and Wiper. And of course, we saw what happened with NASA and the fallout between ODM and Wiper, especially given those kind of resource issues. So money, therefore, plays a very critical aspect. And Trevor, is not just money at that high level. It is also the 50 shillings that we've been talking about here. It is the only thing that today makes a young person consider candidate X to be the best candidate, not because of who you are or what you have done or your profile. It is based on how much coins you are able to count and give to me. And we have seen videos, we have witnessed, and we have been at the places where people actually queue to receive money and then go and vote. So the biggest answer for me, Trevor, would be the place of civic education. Why must people be educated to know how to vote and who to vote for? Even if we talk about vetting of leaders, the vetting will happen at the level of before the election. How about after the elections? Because people, a lot of times, cannot even tell. You know, we know how much money the President of the Republic of Kenya earns, including cabinet secretaries, MCAs, and all these nominated people, women reps and governors. But how is it possible that 2 years after you are in office, you have bought all these pieces of land? And even if you were to ask, you know, the values of those pieces of land, they are more than 100 times what you are earning and what you've earned for the last 24 months. Yeah. It is because of the space and the place of politics and money. And so people need to be educated to be able to understand that space, get it, use it to buy money, to buy food, use the money to buy food, put it on the table. When you go to vote, vote for that person who seemingly looks like can be held accountable and can actually be able to put something on the table. And that's why, for me, the space of independent candidates, Trevor, even as we still profile and consider them as really viable, in my view, yes, it is constitutional, it is an individual's democratic right, but even the question of money still comes in. Okay. How many of these independent candidates have the amount of money to run for president and get elected in this country, even at an MCA level? You know? So the question around money comes in. IEBC has said, for example, that you must give us a list of 2,000 nominees who are not members of a political party, and as you submit the names, as you submit the names from the 24 counties, attach their ID cards, because then through the ID numbers they will search from the database, and if Kevin Osido is a member of Party X, has nominated Nerima, who is an independent candidate, they struck me off. How many of these independent candidates have the money to make copies of IDs of 24,000 people, or rather 48,000, and submit those papers to?
And photocopying an ID is at least 10 shillings.
Exactly.
So that's 480,000.
That is still money and politics.
For getting the paperwork.
Which is why youth leagues, these women leagues, and the caucuses like Dora, unless they have the money to convince Azimio presidential candidate that we need 4 of our own in cabinet, it is actually a talk shop.
And just Trevor, to add on that, money is playing a critical role in politics. And this is why you see we are having difficulty to make our leaders accountable. We are voting in, or the political parties are giving us leaders who actually will not deliver to us as Mwananchi. You know, I've seen a good example in Kibera, Honorable Okoth, Nimra Okoth. That is what he did there is remarkable. You know, if you look at it in all angles, what he did there is remarkable. But where is he right now? So this one still, we are still appealing to the political parties that give us leaders who can deliver. the likes of Akina Imran, Honorable Imran Okoth, leaders who can deliver, who can be accountable for the things that they do. Not those that they come, they dish money, and by the time they're getting into office, they disappear. We'll only see them like few months to election. Right now, if you've seen what is happening around, the politicians are even cooking for us, right? You know, right now they are very humble.
There is an MP aspirant who is actually fueling border riders. Every twice a week.
In a fuel station.
In a fuel station known somewhere around the city, the capital city, to help in, you know, the moment you are elected, once
they go back to the office, we are going to pay dearly for this. We will pay dearly.
Yeah, and then, you know, participant 13 here, that's what they call themselves, saying many of our youth lack simple documents like ID cards and feel betrayed. I think we will have the lowest voter turnout ever in this year's general elections. Do you agree with that observation? That despite all the hula baloo, this is going to be the lowest turnout, according to participant 13.
So there have been some studies so in the beginning of the year that were being done, and the apathy was very high. But Kenya is a very interesting country because by the time we get to August, somehow our turnout is always over 65%, 60% turnout. But other countries globally are seeing a decline in participation. So what I'm going to say is there will be a decline in our participation, but compared to the global statistics, we are still high. That's what the conclusion I'm going to give. But I think we will have a turnout that is lower than previous years, but it's still going to be high compared statistically globally.
All right, let's bring up some of the feedback as we wind up on this conversation. Let's see what you're saying here. And Okelo Mwalimu says, Kenya youth must desist from availing themselves for hire as tools of war and hecklers. If you don't subscribe to a politician's ideology, keep off their rallies and allow those interested to attend. For Kenya democratic space to flourish, youth must rise beyond pettiness. Let me hear your views. Let's go back to that one first of all. Let's hear what you people think. Kevin, what do you think of that statement? That, you know, Kenyan youth must now desist from availing themselves for hire as tools of war and hecklers. If you don't subscribe to a politician's ideology, keep off their rallies. Is this the way to go? That if I am not Kenya Kwanza, simply don't show up? If you're Azimio,
Trevor,
is that the solution?
That is the ideal scenario. But the real scenario is actually the opposite, and it's purely based on the realities on the ground. And we already covered this issue on youth employment and spaces. Because if you have young people who are just idling around towns, and it is most of these rallies are happening during weekdays. On Tuesday afternoon, you know, you have people campaigning, and these young people are just idling, counting the number of vehicles that are passing across, or, you know, telling their old small boy or small girl stories. What do you expect them to do? And then the place of peer pressure. Because, Trevor, I have always said this, that political rallies are organized before they happen. You know? You know that Tinga is coming to town, Azimio, for example. The people who are politicians from that area would want to show their might in terms of numbers. A few nights before that happens, the actual rally, a lot of work is actually going on to organize, mobilize, and get these people to the stages. And the same applies to Mheshimiwa Ruto, even the president and all that. In some of the spaces where really is their bedrocks, you probably don't see a lot of organizing and mobilizing people because they show up because this is our man. But most of the rallies, therefore, attract young people because they're just idling. If you have the same number reporting to work, and your HR manager asks you, why are you late? You know, you won't tell them, I went to attend a political rally. Because otherwise you'll be told, just fold your desk, then we'll see you when you become president, you know? Because otherwise, what is the value add? So there are lots of miragic elements for young people, particularly that are based on their availability for hire. And that is why, as I said earlier on, even part of the kind of project we have for the Kenya 2022 elections is also to look at conflict mitigation issues. and early warning, early response, particularly based on how young people are being mobilized to create chaos, to heckle people.
Yeah.
Some of the politicians even intoxicate the youth. They buy them changa and all these nasty drugs. They give it to them so that they feel, you know, that they are much more acceptable to the people, or they boo and shout at other people. For example, one of the clips that you played earlier on, Trevor, where Mheshimiwa Martha Karua is telling some group of hecklers somewhere that you are heckling at me, but the person who has sent you, because they know that people are sent. The person who has sent you, enda umwambie, go and tell the person to come and take the microphone from me, or atume watoto wake. Because the people who organize these young people don't send their children to go and heckle. They don't send their children to go and attend these rallies and, you know, boo and shout at people. So I agree with Okello in his sentiments, and that is where the young people need to focus. We therefore need to push government to expand spaces for young people to do business, make the business environment very affordable, very exciting, interesting. And lastly is to look at what really excites and interests young people. Because we could be giving youth fund, but we're not telling them, we're not telling these young people the most lucrative elements. So county governments, when they actually come into space, also need to provide, to make it easy for young people to value add on their materials and then export them. Yeah. So that there is a very clear value chain of what young people are doing, how it contributes to the GDP, and also how it therefore takes them from the streets of either being used, hired, and heckling people around.
All right, Beverly, what will it take for people to get to that level of mature politics, whereby there's no guns for hire, there's no heckling, you just go listen to the person and leave, or not? You just don't show up.
I think we still have a long way to go on that. Yeah. Because as long as people are jobless, there's no employment opportunity, people are idle, they'll actually show up for these rallies and heckle. The little that they are given, they feel that this one, at least for today, I'll put something on the table. Because if you don't have anything, you'll fall for. If you don't have something, you'll fall for anything, you know? So it is just until we are empowered, all the youths are empowered, job opportunities are created, there's an enabled environment where the youths, the young people can thrive, then we'll still continue to see hecklers on the street and disrupting rallies. And the most unfortunate thing is this politician who send us or send youths to go and create chaos. By the end of the day, when you are now in the hands of the law, they won't come to help you. They'll desert you and look for other people. So it is just about us to know that they are using us, and we just need to be informed, you know, and wake up from it and stop them from using us. Yes.
And you know, Nerima, the reason I'm asking this is because Okello Mwalimu has brought it up, and Joseph Kamemba has also brought it up here on Twitter. He says, I don't know nor understand who bewitched our youth. They are busy cheering in campaign rallies, not knowing that their future is being stolen by corrupt leaders. We should wake up, or else Kenya is sinking, and youth will be answerable for that.
True.
Are the youth the ones to blame for this, or is it the politicians?
I think it's a mix of both, because it's a relationship that's symbiotic. So because of that corruption, I'm able to benefit from that corruption. But for that corruption to continue, I have to steal more to give you to benefit. So it's a cycle. And I do think that there's a disconnect. Youth do not quite get how it's affecting me now. That correlation to the stealing, the bribery, the corruption, and how my life is right now, and the services I'm supposed to receive, because it's in the Constitution for me to receive, there's that disconnect. And that's why, you know, organizations like mine and OCDOs exist, you know, when he talks about the civic education of that. And I do believe that in the county budget processes, we're beginning to see groups awakening, youth groups awakening, and holding county governments accountable. So until we get to that level, the youth will begin to understand how important it is to have representation that is about the people and also accountability. But as of now, that disconnect, a lot of youth don't see.
All right, let's bring up some more of your feedback coming through here. Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya is #Daybreak. Governor 254 says some are young people who don't know who they are, what they can be, or even what they want to be. They are afraid, but they don't know of what. They don't even know what they're afraid of. They are angry, but they don't know at whom. They are rejected, and they don't know why. All they want is to be somebody.
Precisely.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's an interesting analogy there. Bob Otieno Wino says, I wish Aketch should team up with Nerima and form a formidable, youthful political party.
Correct.
And break away from old political parties kama bado analala na narrative ya vijana ni viongozi wa kesho. Watazidi kupangwa. Let's talk about that for a bit. Yeah, and this is the other issue. How come young people don't galvanize around each other? And Kevin, I'd like you to hear this, talk about this before we get into the political team that are team up. Yeah.
Trevor,
Yeah.
we said this earlier on.
Yeah.
Organizing of young people is going to take us, how old is the Republic of Kenya? 58 years old? It will take us another 58 years to get to a level where youth begin to organize properly to make effective change. Of course, a lot of that organizing is happening on some issues, like we saw COVID-19. Oh, young people came up with brilliant ideas to help governments to, respond. But when it gets to the political angles, the political patronage that we see in our politics, the hegemonic nature of how politics is done, it really locks out young people. So even if Nerima and Beverly will gang up and form a coalition, the youth will still say, oh, this is, I want a pesa. Where do you come from? The questions that already we were talking about. And I'll give you a very good example. During the BBI process, I'll be candid, I was pro-BBI for clear reasons. For example, that any corruption case in Kenya has to end within 2 years. This is quite a profound recommendation, because today we have corruption cases going for the lifetime of those who stole money, that really can make very fundamental change.
Yeah.
As we were organizing for BBI, we put together young people across all the 47 counties, and we met with the late chair of BBI, Mheshimiwa Senator Yusuf Haji. And so because he saw many of us coming up and were asked to introduce ourselves, and people introduced themselves, and then so he said, of course we had been meeting Trevor and Nerima and also Beverly with the chair. He knew that this team is being led by Kevin Osido. So when he asked, and the Vice Chair Adams, Professor Adams Ulo was also there, he asked, so who is your leader? And out of nowhere, even people that we gave transport to come from their homes to attend the meeting at KICC said, I am the leader, I am the leader, I am the leader. And ultimately, like young people, all of you cannot be leaders, which is where the problem with our young people in Kenya is. Everybody wants to lead, which is why I think it's Governor 254, whoever is saying, they know who they don't know who they are, but they are struggling to be who they don't know that they are. So that analogy. The youth must begin to identify as a block. The weaknesses we have must be our own weaknesses. Don't see me as a weak person and you consider yourself strong. Because where I am weak, you are strong. Where you are strong, where you are weak, I am strong. So that we begin to see the pendulum balancing at the benefits of all young people. When, for example, not all young people can be in government. When one of us is in government, let's use that as an opportunity to send all the good things that you want to see happening for the youth, not to use that as an opportunity to start fighting. Oh, wewe baba yako anajuana na president. Oh, you paid to get that money. Oh, you slept with so and you appointed. That's not going to help young people to make it. But the organizing, Trevor, as I said, is a long process. So if we agree that Nerima and Beverly need to form the next coalition, we will help support young people too.
Beverly, a quick comment on that. You and Nerima have been asked to form a coalition.
It's possible. I usually look at the possibility of something, because youths, as we said, we are the majority. If we can only come together for a common cause, then we can be able to do it. But there are still some aspects that really needs to be worked on, like complementing each other and not fighting each other. Because somehow, again, we again fight each other by the end of the day, So I need to compliment Nerima, and Nerima also needs to compliment me, because my strength might be her weakness, and her weakness might be her strength might be my weakness. So when we complement each other, then we are going to create a formidable platform for all of us to thrive by the end of the day. And also another key thing that also comes to play is the deep pockets, the financial muscle. You know, however much we will come together, if we do not have the financial muscles, I'm telling you, no one will listen to us by the end of the day. So still money and politics comes to play.
Okay.
Yes.
Nerima?
Yes, it's expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, because even when we look at political party ownership, I think there are less than 5 that are run by women. That's why even the image that we show of men, it's because parties are owned by men and the access to resources, older men. But youth don't have that. But also not to come around as young people, but on a thematic, on an issue, because youth is also transient.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a youth in the next election.
Yeah.
So it's also to realize that and recognize that we must surround ourselves around an issue, because there are challenges that across the board every young person has, and that is the lack of access to opportunity.
Right.
If we can coin ourselves around that, we can be a huge political party.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Let me bring up some of the last feedback so that we take closing remarks and wind up on this conversation. Let Roy T-Boy get on the decks now. Queen's Pacho says, as a grassroots mobilizer and admin, Honorable Gachagua knows how to speak to the heart, mind, and the mouth of the youth. This election will be about economy and youth agenda, hustlership, not colonial and constitutional reforms. Okay. Chalo Woodrow says, Martha Karua and Raila Odinga are now enjoying the fruits of their youthful struggles. They worked very hard as youth to reach where they are today. Youth that we have today are lazy and just waiting for endorsement in political offices. Okay. And Pelin says the goal in the end of August 9th should not be to win elections. Rather, it should be to change the society, restore love and peace, restore our economy and good association in this beautiful country of ours, which is Kenya. Osido, I'll start with you. Closing remarks. What do you want the young people to understand this morning? 81 days to go to the polls. What would you wish they understood and got into their heads?
I wish that young people understood that this election is about them, and that the youth must do everything possible to make this election have a meaning to them. And that meaning that the election is going to have is not based on the narratives that we see happening from the political rallies. It is based on what we understand as our history in terms of the gaps and missteps of government in responding to young people's issues, concerns, and challenges. The youth of Kenya must come up and provide solutions, not agonize, complain. We must organize ourselves around our common interests. And those common interests are going to be interests that will be able to inform and influence the political narratives, even as we see the elections drawing closer.
Okay.
We are hoping that young people will be able to understand, rather underscore their challenges and document them, because after the election, we want to push government to be able to respond to those challenges that young people face. Okay. The election is not about hustler or dynasties. This election is about Kenya. Unfortunately, even the hustlers don't have hustlers speaking for young people. Okay. So youth, it's not about you. Okay. It is about them. Let's make this election about us as young people.
All right. Beverly? Kevin Osido sounded like he's reading.
I was
wondering, was that the time? Was he reading something? Beverly, your closing remarks.
This is what I'd like to urge the youths.
Yeah.
Number one, we need to know that we are the majority of the population in this country, and we have a say in everything politics.
Yeah.
And most youths, you find them and you talk to them about politics and they say, I don't care.
Yeah.
You need to care, because everything that is affecting you is in one way or the other related to politics. Because the politicians, the people we vote into office, they make decisions that are bound to impact us, either positively or negatively. So by the end of the day, you should understand that you have a voice, and a very strong voice. Okay. And that voice is your vote. Right. So as you go in to vote, or as you want to sit back and not vote, just reflect on what you want. In future for yourself and your generation to come. If you'd like a brighter future, then you'll take a seat, analyze the candidates, because we are not imposing any candidate on someone. You analyze them yourself. And by the end of the day, you'll see the one that you resonate with. Yeah. And we want to make this election an issue-based election. We don't want propaganda. We don't want insults, because we are looking forward into a youthful generation, a next political forum whereby the politicians, when we sit on a panel like this, will not be hurling insults at each other.
Yeah.
We were here.
Yeah.
Did we hurl insults at each other? We were just discussing issues that are pertinent to us.
Okay.
So by the end of the day, look at that leader whose manifesto or agenda is close next to what you desire.
Okay.
You know,
right.
Someone that addresses you, addresses your need. By the end of the day, we need to be employed.
All right.
Youths need to be employed. By the end of the day, the single mothers need to have something to take home by the end of the day. You know, by the end of the day, we'd like to see everyone having an access to education. Because an educated nation is an informed nation. Okay. And youths, we form a backbone of that.
All right.
This guy, I cannot just say this.
You're trying to read the
need to be hired for speeches, for presidential candidates.
You have the last one.
Now you have the last one.
There's nothing
the
much
best is left
I can add.
There
is nothing much I can add. For me to just be, I agree. My colleagues, correct. And then the only thing I would say is the why, you know, to ask the right questions. But also where, because I'm seeing a lot of conversations in Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, and sometimes people begin to battle on issues like personality and not on ideas. I think that conversation needs to shift in those platforms where you are already. And also ask questions like a child. You know the way a child can ask you, why? Why are we going there?
Yeah.
Why? What is that? Ask those simple questions all the time, because we need to get to the root of why a certain person feels they are the right candidate for you. Okay. And some of them cannot answer the why. And find out who those are.
All right.
Do not vote for them.
Thank you so much for making time this morning. That has been the Youth Opinion. Nerima Wako, Executive Director, Siasa Place. Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch, and also political commentator. Beverly Aketch, Organizing Secretary, that's Daughters of Raila. Thank you so much for making time this morning. And thank you all for the feedback that you've sent through. It's Friday, people. So it's time for Level Up. Roy Tibo is on the decks. Keep it Citizen TV. Bye for now.